I'm doing my own little review on the movie Suburbia from 1983, and it was released in 1984. Uh, Basically, a story about a bunch of throwaway teenagers back in the 80s who were part of the punk scene, whose parents were the worst parents in the world, a lot of them, and they all wind up living in a squat, and they face a lot of BS. This wasn't just a movie. A lot of this was really going on. I mean, it was so close to reality. But the only thing that in that movie that was BS was when the girl had her clothes ripped off. That never would have happened at a show. A lot of the girls I knew who were in the punk scene were victims of a male figure in the house. And if that would have happened, the girls would have been the ones you had to worry about. They had to jump in and beat the crap out of whoever was doing it. But it goes back to, like a lot of the comments I've seen about people with this punk in the park thing, saying that just because the promoter doesn't have the same beliefs as you do, these punks are, fascist, and, they're the fascists, and, we should ignore everybody's politics and just get together and have a good time. And a lot of these people who are saying this never belonged in the punk scene to begin with, and a lot of them too are ex-teenage rebels who wound up getting a job and having families. And I tell them, when they say that, I'm like, hey, it's not my fault you screwed your life up. It's just, there's a song from the Subhumans called Ex-Teenage Rebel, which basically sums them up. But anyway, back in the 80s too, a lot of conservatives did not like subcultures. They hated punk, they hated metal, they hated anything that was different. And even before the PMRC were around, there were organizations that were funded by the Christian right to basically have kids locked in detention facilities and mental institutions. And there were, and still are, places like Provo Canyon that would come and kidnap you in the middle of the night. They would handcuff you, blindfold you, throw you in the back of a van. Then next thing you know, you're in the middle of nowhere in this facility, and you're basically being beaten and tortured into submission to be a good little boy and not question your parents. And a lot of these conservatives too in the day, they were a bunch of hypocrites. They would say these teenagers are just rebelling, they're not listening to their parents, they're just out of control for no reason. And if you look at the home lives these kids had, a lot of them came from abusive situations. A lot of the girls came from homes where the male figures couldn't keep their hands off of them, and then when they would tell their mothers would get mad and victim shame them. So a lot of kids were running away and running toward the punk scene for camaraderie, friendship, and others who understood them. And a lot of the boys, they were coming from bad situations too, where, they were being beaten by their fathers. A lot of them came from broken homes. I mean, mom had her boyfriend, dad had his boyfriend, or mom had a girlfriend and dad had a boyfriend, and they just didn't want a kid involved. So the kids were just left to their own vices and wound up out in the streets and, living in squats. And yet, the conservatives are complaining about the family system being broken. I mean, it was broken a long time ago. And the left had nothing to do with that. I mean, that was their own doing. So, like in this movie, you'll see that with, these guys that call themselves the Citizens Against Crime, who are basically gun nuts, who want their own form of justice because they say the cops aren't doing their job. And, these kids are basically just trying to survive. They're doing the best they can with what little they got. But it's funny because these conservatives are like conservatives today. They're pro-cop and tell the cops to do their jobs and everything. But when they're confronted, they believe they have more superiority and they can just do whatever they want. And if the cop goes to arrest them, they're crying, "You can't arrest me. I'm a patriot. I'm a citizen. I'm a taxpayer," and all that. And, a lot of these kids were basically just anti-authority to begin with. And these conservatives are basically anti-cop. And around this time, too, in the movie and in reality, a lot of people were laid off from their jobs. A lot of people were let go because of progress or, company corruption. And, these guys, they were complaining at this yard sale that, "Oh, we can't work, we can't hunt, we can't do this, we can't do that." But yet, they had money for beer. They had money to go into strip clubs and hang out and blow their money there instead of feeding their families. And the same thing happens today, where you got people like this who are still, like the price of eggs, the price of gas, I can't afford this and can't afford that, but yet you can afford money for alcohol, money for strip clubs or, whatever recreation that they like. But yet, it's everyone else's fault. Instead of spending that money on alcohol and strip clubs and whatever else, maybe you should be using that money to feed your family. And I mean, it's still the same today, but yet you have old punks and new punks who don't either know any better or, they're just plain stupid. Why are you going to support the same people who were trying to shut you down back then? The same people who basically would have shot you and thought nothing of it. I mean, this is MAGA, and even back then, if Trump would have been around back then, these people would have been MAGA. So you can't support the people who are against you to begin with. And these people, they don't belong in the scene. I mean, they're like, "Oh, we should just get together and have a good time." It's like, okay, you're focusing on the good time, and you're going to a concert or a show where the lyrics of a lot of these songs are about you and against you. So why are you going? And, they're saying, "Oh, we should just embrace these people. What, we should go hug members of the Ku Klux Klan or, hug members of a hate group." You out of your freaking mind? And they'll say, "Well, there was racism back in the punk day." Yeah, there was. A lot of it was just ignorance. A lot of things in the 80s, I hate to say it, were different. Sorry, my cat's in the way. But, I don't know, because I never dealt with this myself, and I can't make excuses for anybody. Like in the movie, the dude Jack, his stepdad's a cop, and he's black. Which back then, if you were a white kid and you had a black dad, you got made fun of in school and in society. Because, that was still unacceptable to a lot of people. And another kid, his dad is gay. And I don't think it's so much he hates gay people. It's just the fact that what his dad did to him that hurts more than anything. Basically being abandoned by your parents so they can go do what they want to do and, to hell with you. I mean, that's what, that was more about. But, anyway, back to the movie. A kid named Devin leaves home. His mom's an alcoholic. He winds up going to a show, making friends with Jack, who takes him to the squat. Then his mom's in a drunk driving accident, and his little brother winds up hanging with the neighbors. So he goes and gets his little brother. There's a girl named Sheila who's in there. Her father is another one of them male figures that couldn't keep their hands to themselves. Here we go again, and, they're fighting with these conservatives who want to, go in there and just, shoot the place up and get rid of all these kids. And that's what these were. These were kids. They were throwaways. they had nowhere to go, and a lot of them in the movie said, yeah, this is the best home I ever had. And yes, a lot of this was real. A lot of these squats were the best homes that a lot of these guys had, and girls. You know, everybody kind of stuck together, did their own thing, and, you know, looked out for one another. And I'd like to see some squats pop back up again. But anyway, it's called Suburbia, 1983. Watch the movie if you haven't watched it. And those of you who forgot what it was all about back then, you need to watch this movie again. And if you feel differently now from what you felt back then, that underage kids who are different need to be put down, and you were never a part of the scene to begin with, and you are not welcome at any of our shows. Thank you.